7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of X-Wingin It. I am here with my partner, Darth Brendan, and we are excited to be here. I'm excited to be live again. It's been a while since I have been able to sit down on the computer and do what I love. But before we get into this awesome episode, again, I want to welcome Brendan here. I want to say also thank you to our sponsors, TRG Toys and Collectibles. Make sure you check them out at trgtoys.com for all your collectibles needs, to Star Wars, Marvel, you name it. They got it there. So, Brendan, welcome to X-Wingin It. This is the first episode of this series, and I'm glad to have you on board here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my first time doing something like this, so hopefully the growing pains won't be too bad. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
We won't try different than our campfire chats.
Yeah, we won't try to abuse you too bad on the show here. But pretty awesome here. For people that don't know, we're kind of going with the new brand with the X-Wingin It show. In the future, we're going to have actors, we're going to have artists, we're going to have all kinds of people on here, and I'm very excited for the show, and just very excited to be back. So, of course, we really don't have a lot to look forward to for the rest of the year, and who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So, I want to talk about a show that I know I truly loved, and I'm sure you did too as well, and a lot of the fans out there. And obviously, we're going to talk about the Ahsoka series. Now, this was a series that I was just waiting for all year long. So glad that it finally, released. And honestly, I don't think I was let down one single bit. I'll get into my true feelings on this series as we go through the show tonight. But Brennan, I'll let you kind of start a little bit. I mean, was the series what you thought it was going to be to live up to your expectations?
Yeah, I think I came into it expecting it to kind of continue off of Rebels. Which it did feel like very much a live action continuation of everything we got there. And I think like both of us will probably agree that Rebels in our mind is probably close to the top tier as far as Star Wars goes. So I know we're both fans of that. So if it was very Filoni, it was familiar characters, and honestly, start to finish, it was just a lot of fun. So yeah, I think it met my expectations.
It definitely was one of those episodes, the series that like it. There's some times like, and people know my I'm very vocal with my opinions. I was down with the Book of Boba Fett, and most people know that Andor wasn't my thing. It was good. Again, I always tell people when I say this, Andor was good, but it wasn't my thing. And then, even Obi-Wan, there were sometimes I'm just kind of like, what's going on here? What's doing this? But what I really enjoyed with the Ahsoka series is, even though it was like, the Rebels, it didn't feel like Rebels. And I'll nitpick here in a little bit, because obviously there's some downfalls I thought about the series, but it was just so much good. I love the storyline that we got into. And, the first thing I want to really kind of talk about, obviously, is, the return of Ahsoka and Hyung, however you say his name. I'll mess it up. Yeah. It was so cool to have him in the show. Somebody who's been part of the Star Wars universe for thousands of years, especially with the lightsaber building, and we saw like all the different lightsabers. I mean, how cool was that to you to see him, appear in this series, and the story, and kind of how it led into. We'll talk a little bit about Ezra here in a little bit too.
Yeah, it was super unexpected to see him. I was like going back. I'm like, did I read something or miss something that like he's back? And I'm looking forward to, hopefully they'll go in and throw us some books or a comic or something showing what he was doing between, I think the last time we saw him was in Clone Wars and now, but I mean, he was, yeah, just a great part of the show. I know sometimes the droids can be, they're kind of used for slight comedic relief. And some of the like C-3PO stuff, R2-D2, it just continued that tradition. I think like K2SO set like kind of a high mark in my mind for a droid used in one of the Star Wars live action, and I definitely think this is right up there with that. So
I do like the appearance of him. He didn't kind of, he didn't kill the series. He was, he did have that humor as well. And it was just neat. And I just like the little touches, the Easter eggs, especially when, Ezra, and we'll talk a little bit about when Ezra was building his lightsaber again, and he had the little piece like Kanan had and everything. So very interesting. I love the stories, and, there's a theory out there now that all the Star Wars things was him talking to Ahsoka while they were in their good old space whale heading towards, looking for Ezra. So there's all kinds of weird theories out there, and it actually would be kind of a neat one to have there. But again, we'll get more into that, at the end when we talk about our theories and thoughts for what's coming up here. So the next thing we'll talk about is, let's get into the villains a little bit, the good bad guys. And I'm saying good bad guys because this is interesting. This is probably the closest that Star Wars has ever kind of dangled to the gray Jedi area. And I know a lot of people cringe when they hear that. But I mean, it was kind of there because we found out that these two were kind of not there for the Empire. They were there for
they're definitely they're definitely not full dark side.
Yeah.
I think just like the fact that you don't have the red eyes, and I think it's going to be super interesting to see where the story goes with the two of them, because it does. It's interesting. They've been trained, they're Force users, but once again, kind of hitting that sense that just there isn't just the light and the dark. There is kind of, there's that middle ground, the individuals who use both. And I mean, that was a big theme with the Night Sisters. So I love that they went with it, because I love shades of gray in stories. Those characters that you don't know that they're evil, you don't know what their full motivation is. Are they someone who's good but just kind of gone down a wrong path? The kind of like, what is the trauma that led to them being who they are today? And I think like with Balin, you definitely get that he's a survivor. His worldview's so impacted by what happened, and he saw the Jedi Order fail, so he's become something different or something more or less. And I just think that's such a cool area to explore.
Yeah, Rick Stevenson, I mean, it's a shame that he passed away, because I really, Balin Squall became like just one of these characters I wanted to know more about. So I'm really hoping that, Marvel picks up on this and gets the comics, gets some stories, on him, and some books as well. But definitely a character I want to know more about and everything. And then with the whole end, what he was looking for, that's, another story as well. So I was very intrigued with him, but then there's also his, apprentice. So here we have, Shahati, and she, was kind of like that lost child throughout the thing, looking for guidance. And I think she, at the end, she realized too that, he's gone. Like, he's on his own path. He's not coming back. She's left on this planet with so much things going on with the story. But it was just intriguing, these two, because, she, like, to me, I felt like she wasn't fully invested to the dark side, but she was kind of turning that way because that's what, her master was doing. But she was still kind of like, what's going on and everything too. So I don't know. Very, very interesting couple. I mean, what are your thoughts on her and how she was portrayed, and, how much more of her story do you want as well?
Once again, I thought fantastic character, and knowing her, like, my headcanon is she was kind of discovered in the way that old Padawans were. He was traveling, found someone that was Force sensitive, took them, raised them. So he's really like shaped and formed her. And maybe that's the case, maybe not, but that's kind of what it feels like. But definitely she felt more like dark side tendencies, as far as just kind of the raw emotion that was kind of like what we got out of Maul and Savage, as opposed to Balin. If he is, you kind of still have like the Dooku feel to him, of a very controlled individual who's like made the choices, where she seems to be much more just driven by her emotion. So it's going to be interesting to see where that leads her.
Yeah,
I think
definitely, two interesting characters. And like and the one probably character I was the most disappointed in was our so-called Inquisitor. Um, I was really expecting more, but now I know why, he was like this, Maduke, or however you want to say his name. I know why he was like this now after we finished the series, but we also know now that it was just wasn't what I was expecting. I was waiting to see an old Jedi. I don't know. I don't know about you. This was one of the areas I was disappointed in. I was hoping that mask would come off and it was like, oh, Mace Windu, whoever. But what are your thoughts on our
I
good old?
kind of love that he was no one. I did, like, all the internet speculation about it, um, all the just kind of theories. And at the end of the day, for it to just to be like, this is a vast world, like, not everyone has to be someone. There were a lot of Inquisitors, there were a lot of Jedi out there. A person, like, when he died and like how it happened and everything, like, I almost laughed. I was just like, I personally loved it because it's just, I know some people felt like they were trolled by it, or um they were set up and just kind of disappointed that it wasn't more. But I think it being more might have taken away from the story a little bit.
Yeah.
Or it's then that if it is someone, well, how do they survive? What's their story? What's their background? As opposed to, like, we know what happened with the Inquisitors and who they were. Even if he's not one of the ones we know of, his story can fit into uh along the lines of all the others. So I wasn't super disappointed that it wasn't something big. I think it was kind of maybe a little bit of a dirty trick to do the mask and to know that as soon as you show someone in a mask, the entire fan base is going to spend time. Who are they? Who are they? Who are they? Um, so yeah, maybe a little messing with people with that, but overall I didn't mind it too much, and I think it didn't take away from kind of like how cool the character was, and
Yeah.
the sense of like this was someone that was powerful and trained and had a lot going on. It didn't make like Ahsoka defeating him any lesser of a victory. So I think overall I enjoyed how it was handled, but I understand if people are upset with it.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just wanted that, like, just one little, like, it was a Jedi or somebody we know, someone,
You like those Easter
again,
eggs?
one of the younglings that were good, that they disappeared, I don't know. I just wanted something kind of like that. But,
Yeah, yeah.
I do like the way it was because, again, obviously Ahsoka seems to be the executioner of Inquisitors. So she seems to be taking them out pretty good.
Another notch
But
on her lightsaber hilt.
but let's talk about some of the fun characters. So this is where I've kind of had some mixed judgment. Now, obviously, you and myself are both Star Wars Rebels fans. Um, everybody who's listening right now, are getting ready to talk, obviously, about Hera, um, Sabine, all that. One of my biggest things, and again, this has been through a lot of Star Wars when we convert to live action, was the voices. Um, I'm used to Hera one way, then we get, to me, Vanessa Marshall was my Hera, and now we got, this, and then, Sabine, and so on. And Hera wasn't too bad. Sabine, I'll let everybody know, Sabine was my roughest one, I think. But I still like how they all portrayed very well. It was just the voices on there. But let's talk a little bit about Hera Chopper. Obviously, Space Mom, and she's just Hera's just been such a pivotal part in the Star Wars story now. I mean, we know that she's fought in the Battle of Endor. We know she worked her way up to general. She again is trying to save so much and realize what the threat's coming. I mean, what were your thoughts on Hera's appearance? Were you very satisfied with the way she was portrayed? And also, too, if you're watching, let us know what your thoughts are as well. We would love to know. So, Brennan, take it away.
Yeah, once again, I thought the character was really well done. I enjoyed how Chopper and Hera were introduced. Chopper suggesting genocide within like the first 5 minutes of him being on screen. Um, it's yeah, and there definitely is that moment of it feels off when you know a character for so long,
Yeah.
and it's the voice. I mean, for me, like one of the hardest was just Ahsoka being Rosario Dawson instead of Ashley Eckstein. Like,
Yeah.
um, but I think it didn't take me too long to get over that and just kind of accept it. Um, and I think, yeah, and I think like at this point we've had those moments, whether it be like how Cad Bane was portrayed or like the Inquisitor or the Grand Inquisitor, where it's just like this isn't what I envisioned, but I'll take a deep breath, I'll step back and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I think the actresses killed it. I think across the board they did a good job. Um, the characters were very well portrayed. Any complaints I have about the characters, maybe there's some things with their storylines, but I
Yeah.
can't fault the people playing the characters. So
Yeah. I agree 100%. You know, I got used to it after a while, so it didn't phase me as much. Um, but you know, I love Hera's attitude. You can tell that she hardened up a lot after the loss of Kanan. I like the little Easter egg of Kanan's picture inside the ghost board. I don't know if a lot of people saw that or not, but there was that little. So we did have a Kanan sighting in the Ahsoka series. And you know, even seeing little Jason running around, we know that there's more of this story coming. Obviously, especially the way this ended, we know there's more of the story coming. But then we also find the next thing, and this is probably the most controversial part of the whole Ahsoka series, I think. So much, especially on the good old interwebs, of how people felt about this. And obviously Sabine, going into this, was she a Jedi? Is she not a Jedi? Was she trained? And if people actually watch Rebels, and you'll probably agree with me, we know that Kanan knows that she could unlock her potential of becoming a Jedi. Did I kind of like her more as not? I don't know. I'm like 50-50. I kind of like, if they would have went either way with this, I would have been good. But I like to know your thoughts, and anyone else listening, please let us know. But Sabine as a Jedi, should they have kept it that, or should they have left her alone and let her just be the Mandalorian that she was? What are your thoughts?
it's it didn't feel necessary to me. Um, and yeah, and I even went back and watched Rebels. Like, I got the sense that he knew I knew she had some power, or knew she had maybe like a little force sensitivity, but it never, like, obvious. And I mean, he was not fully trained himself, so maybe he didn't completely recognize it, or because it's never mentioned or talked about when he does the lightsaber training with her. But yeah, it felt a little forced. And then
No
kind of
pun
her
intended.
journey of I'm trying, and then it like automatically clicks on. At the end there, I didn't feel like the show got me there personally.
Yeah,
Um, I loved I mean, and it's the two things: the force to grab the lightsaber and bring it to her. If it had just been that, I love that.
yeah,
That very Empire Strikes Back. It's kind of it's a classic thing that's been done across all the media, as you're in a situation where you're fighting for your life, and it's not the most stressful or strenuous force thing, but people do it, it saves them, it's a huge moment.
yeah,
So I like that happened. The force push felt a little more, um and it didn't sync with kind of what we had been told about her. Like, yeah, you have access to the force, but you're never going to be good at it. Like, you might be able to, like, I just think and I mean, you look at kind of Yoda's teachings, there's
yeah,
no difference between moving a rock and an X-wing. Um it's
yeah,
in my mind. So maybe I can get behind she was able to do more, but to a slight degree it felt unearned to me that she ended up where she did, as far as kind of feeling more powerful. But
yeah,
um I don't think it was necessary, but I don't hate it.
yeah. I'm in the same boat. I don't hate it. I kind of wish that Ezra would have got on the ship a little differently, because she went full, like, I mean, if you remember right, Ezra was having problems controlling that, and here she goes, she's able to launch him, 50 million feet onto this thing, and I get where he's getting at, and everything, and like I said, I enjoyed it, but I agree with you. Like, if they would have went either way, I would have been happy with it, but it did feel like they kind of forced it there, and really just I kind of wish they would have left it be a little bit. Um, but and then all my boy Justin Lee on here. I was waiting for a Dash Rendar comment. But Justin Lee, one day we might see him, man, just one day. But it's starting to not look too good for good old Dash. But who knows what'll happen there? But yeah, it's just, yeah, we'll just have to see how much stronger she is at the Force in the next season, or the Mandoverse movie, or whatever's next there. And we'll get back into her and Ezra here in a little bit. One of the things I really liked was the return of the Night Sisters. Like, how cool was that to see that power in there? And one thing that I really noticed with Thrawn, I'll get into a little bit here, is he really took on this Night Sister alliance pretty hard. And obviously, we learned that. But so you got Morgan Elsbeth, the magistrate, with her Dathomir descent, and the Night Sisters all teaming up here. And next thing you know, you've got, I was waiting for Darth Maul to pop back out somewhere, and it was pretty neat to have this combo in there. What were your thoughts on the powers and when she became official Night Sister, and just how she went from somebody who we didn't realize how big of a role she was going to have when we saw her in The Mandalorian, becoming one of the key people to help us find Thrawn.
Yeah, and personally, I love that they did that. I mean, had a great actress, cool character that was just kind of hinted at. You see a lot of characters like that kind of end up not being used to their full potential, or they keep cycling in new villains. So I always love when you flesh something out that's already there. Give us more.
Yeah.
Um, I think the Night Sisters are so fascinating. It's always been interesting that more different force, different use of the force, the magic, but it's still force. I think the stuff that has been done with Ventress, that kind of tapped into it, all the Maul stuff we got out of Clone Wars and Rebels, that really kind of delved into different use or different side of the force is cool. So, and I think it's a really, really cool way for them to do this. There's a different galaxy.
Yeah.
And it worked. It made sense. It's a good way to bring the Night Sisters back, even though like they're gone in the galaxy we know.
Yeah.
Without it would have felt weird if they were just suddenly back in our galaxy or in the main Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah.
You're like, we saw them be eliminated. Let's not retcon that.
Right. Jedi Survivor showed that there's only one Night Sister left.
Yeah, Marin.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And just their powers, seeing that, and I love, and you touched on something I was about at the end here, is the whole other universe, because this, just like Marvel, the Star Wars storybook just opened up with 1 million blank pages.
So, yeah, huge.
And then Justin Lee, I'm gonna bring up his comment again, and I agree, Justin. Yeah, let's don't bring Maul back. We've already had, a good run with Maul. If they do a flashback or something, that's great. But yeah, let's get, some of those characters. And I'll be the first to say this. I'm sorry for anybody who disagrees with this. I love Obi-Wan, but I'm done with him. We've got enough story on Obi-Wan. We've got enough Anakin. Let's just keep moving along and then open up this new galaxy. But let's talk about one of our favorite villains. Obviously Thrawn. I was so worried about this when, Thrawn was announced that he was going to be in this. I was like, if they don't use Lars as the voice, I was going to be done. Like, this was one of those voices, just like Cad Bane. You cannot have anybody else taking this voice. And, better yet, they just had Lars play him, which I thought he did a great job. Obviously he must be eating well over in that other universe. But it was so great to see Thrawn and just and I always use the old George Bush word, strategery. he's just that guy that puts everything together. I mean, how thrilled were you when we got Thrawn back finally after all those episodes, and we finally get to see Thrawn? And what were your thoughts with the way he kind of aligns with the Night Sisters and his dark army that he built?
It's such a great character. So it was definitely exciting to see him back. I think I've read a lot more of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And the new kind of the two trilogies on Thrawn kind of set him up more as like an anti-hero as opposed to like a true villain. So you have the sense of, like, they kind of say he joined the Empire because there's a greater threat to Chiss space. And he needed strong allies to combat that.
Yeah.
So as someone who really wants that to be Thrawn, it feels a little hard when it's glory to the Empire and Empire, because they kind of set him up in those as like he did what he did for the Chiss, not necessarily for the Empire.
Right.
But at the same time, there are decades in between then. His exile obviously changed him, and also maybe he's saying what he needs to say. But I think it gets a lot closer to like the original trilogy too. So I know a lot of people like that as opposed to the newer stuff. So
yeah, it's I think that I agree with you with the whole. I think he's doing what he needs to do to try to take charge of things. I think he's not full Empire, but he knows he needs to be full Empire, especially if he comes back and kind of running things from there. What I love is how Thrawn plans stuff and how he like puts the chess pieces together. And even something that I noticed, and it probably wasn't even a big deal, was when Morgan Elsbeth became officially a Night Sister. And if you watch, he watches the whole ceremony, and it looks like he's taking it in and going, okay, what's going on here? And the whole time he could have walked away. Like, why does he care if she becomes, a Night Sister? And to me, that really stuck out for some reason on there. And then he knew that, hey, I'm not going to waste. I don't have a lot of assets. I don't want to waste them. My whole theory is if I have to leave people here, I'm going to leave them here, but I'm getting out of this planet, off this planet. And just those little things there. But what I really liked about this was when he realized who Ahsoka's master was. When he realized that Anakin and Ahsoka were together, it was like, wait a minute, she might be able to be turned just like him. What buttons can we push? So definitely some interesting stuff there. And then Justin Lee wants to know from us, how do you think he meets his end? Does the Team Mandoverse beat him, or does Snoke, Palpatine betray him? I would say all of them. I don't, Justin. That's a good question. Brandon, I'll let you knock on it first, and I'll throw out my 2 cents.
I think we're gonna see Team Mandoverse take him down. I don't like one. I'm trying not to let my distaste for the sequels like taint what I want to see happen. But I kind of also just don't see them going there. Like, we know Palpatine is off in Exegol doing whatever he's doing,
Yeah.
And has some. I mean, we're still pretty recent after, so probably not that much influence on the world and what's going on. So I don't see them getting directly involved in whatever happens with Thrawn. And I think like Filoni wants that tight, self-contained story that is going to end with the team he's put together, the characters he's put together, taking out the villain he's given us.
Yeah. What kind of where you're going here? What makes this hard for me is we already know where the whole story goes.
Yep.
And it's then my brain starts racking off things. Well, now we got this other universe. We could do stuff here, and I'll get into that the way I thought things were going to go. But we know Thrawn's back in Star Wars Universe 1. We know Thrawn's back in there, and part of me thinks that when he realizes that he isn't calling the shots, I think for some reason we're just going to see him kind of just disappear out of things. Like I know it sounds weird, but he's more interested in saving his people than he is being, and maybe he works out something where he's able to say, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see the death of Thrawn yet.
Yeah,
That's my thing, and I still don't think we see the death of Moff Gideon yet. I'm going to say that right now. I still think that was one of his clones that died. You know, that's one of my theories. I mean, he was really clean shaven. It was kind of weird. There's just
yeah,
something that was just, you know, because I really want to see that Thrawn Moff Gideon face off. You know, I do want to see that. But yeah, there's so many options we can go in there. We'll go into our theories here at the end.
because yeah, I know like my kind of want at the end of Rebels with him being teleported was, I mean, I never even considered a different galaxy or different universe, but like somehow for him ending up in wild space or Chiss space, and that being where his story continued, and that being where they went with this. And just in the sense that, yeah, we do know what happens in kind of the core worlds and the what we know as the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
But there's so much more out there. And I think if he ends up leaving and there's ways to continue his story somewhere else, I'm all for that. But yeah, and he's also just he's a hard character to just get rid of.
Yeah, it's one of those ones like just like we know Cad Bane's coming back. You know he's not gone yet. But yeah, it's just I don't know. Thrawn has become one of my favorites, and I'm one of the first to admit I haven't read a lot of the books.
Yeah.
I really need to sit down and start cracking out books. I should have done this during this last surgery, but
I'll get you some audiobooks, man.
yeah.
I'll give you my password for my Audible account that just has all of them.
All right,
And you
perfect.
can sit there and listen to them.
Let's talk about the one. You know, I said the voices and stuff, you know, kind of threw me off a little bit. But the next character we're going to talk about, just I did not feel it. I'll be the first to say it, and I don't know. It's Ezra. It was nice, but I know he's been gone. I got to keep that in my head. I got to keep it in my head. He's been gone for a long time, so his boyish stuff. He doesn't have that attitude. He's not as reckless as he was. He was the ruler of the turtle people. It was just
all that responsibility.
Yeah, he just all of a sudden became Daddy Ezra. And it was hard. And then the whole interaction between him and Sabine, which we'll get into here as well. It was just kind of uncomfortable. He kept asking questions, and I know it was supposed to be made to be uncomfortable because, she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to admit that she's the reason why they're all there because, and it's just that whole thing. It felt, and it was probably meant to be, but did it not feel uncomfortable to you? To me, it did, but it had a good ending, but I don't know. I'd like to know your thoughts. And Justin, I know you're probably still listening. I would like to know your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I think it is definitely one of those things where of all the characters, he was kind of, when you go from being like that high school age or like teens to an adult, there's just such a transformation. And you can, I mean, Sabine was only a couple years older, but she always came across as very mature. So it didn't feel like, and I mean, she didn't grow a beard either. So just didn't feel like a completely different character. Whereas when we're given Ezra, we're like, this is someone new. The Ezra we know is still there. There's still elements of it, but he's changed a lot.
Yeah.
And we don't know what he's gone through and whatnot. So yeah, it did take a little bit to adjust to. I think the one thing you still got from him was just that optimism, and just there was still whatever happened to him, it didn't crush his spirits.
Yeah.
So that felt very Ezra. Uh, I think I just wanted him to be a complete badass at this point, and he wasn't quite there. But it explained it, and
Yeah.
he's human, and there's not. I mean, where he was just surviving, not training or being trained. So, But yeah, like part of me just wanted Ezra to be like Luke walking down that hallway, just destroying those bots. Yeah. That would have been super cool. But at the same time, I kind of like that he isn't the savior. He isn't gonna be that all powerful character that like flips everything on its edge. We're still gonna need Ahsoka. We're still gonna need Sabine in her capacity. Um, so he's like kind of another cog in the machine as opposed to uh, someone that's all powerful. So I think it opens up his story and just has a lot of potential for seeing him grow and just seeing more development of the character.
Yeah, it was just not what I just wasn't expecting it. And Justin, thank you. You know, it's definitely one of those things that, you know, they did take a simple approach with him. And again, we're used to the Ezra from Rebels, and it was just hard to get that brain flip because, especially because it was live action. And it was just kind of hard to get that there. But it was just one of those things. Like the turtle things were kind of funny. You know, they had the little baby ones, so I said, "Watch out, Baby Yoda." Now we got little baby turtles. They're gonna be the new wave of things. But it was just he did kind of show some of that Luke thing though, because he was kind of fighting everybody without a lightsaber for a while, and kind of showing how he did become more connected with the Force. You know, and that's the one thing I also noticed too. You have Luke Skywalker who was in exile, you know, that cut himself Force, and then you have, you know, Ezra who was exiled, saved, you know, everybody, and connected deeper to the Force. So that was something that I kind of noticed right away from there. Um, but then, you know, it's just weird. And here we are towards the end of it, you know. So then you've got, you know, Balin Skull and the whole Mortis thing. Now, people who've watched my shows in the past know I'm a big canon stickler sometimes. And there's things that like I look at, like for example, Qui-Gon is a Force ghost technically because the Clone Wars should never have happened. You know, Yoda in the arc where he finished his training, Qui-Gon even told him, "I cannot manifest in the Force ghost because I never finished my training." And then in Obi-Wan, hey, it's Qui-Gon Force Ghost. So obviously they've learned how to train when in the as dead Force Ghosts now. But here, you know, what I'm getting ready to talk about is we see this, you know, this statue. Obviously, it's the daughter, son, and you know the Mortis gods, and we all know that they all died. You know, but what's interesting about the connections with some of these is obviously you have Ahsoka, and we saw the owl flying around again, which the daughter
Mhm.
gave her life to bring Ahsoka back to life. You know, the son was just kind of messed up, kind of back and forth, which could be kind of like Anakin. You know, are we heading towards the new Mortis gods? Are we getting something in that aspect? And we'll talk, um, you know, Anakin and Ahsoka. I kind of say that for last because that's obviously some of the most exciting parts of this. But what are your thoughts about this? Like, call out to the Mortis gods. Are we seeing like are we in a different universe or are they there again or what? What do you think?
So I think in the scene, it kind of like panned out. There were a lot of statues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of opened my thought to, I mean, maybe it wasn't just the three of them. There could have been other being like instead of like being gods or these primal forces, they're just powerful alien. Kind of like what how MCU handled Asgardians,
Okay,
you
yeah,
know? Um yeah, they're gods because they interact with us at a different level or they're a different power, but they're actually just kind of regular people when you take it back to their own world. So I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes with that. Was it a race of people? Is this just where they came from originally?
yeah,
Uh, is their magic somehow tied to the Night Sisters?
yeah. It's
I
it's
think there's a lot of really cool things they can do with it. And I guess the thing with the whole Mortis arc too is you don't know what you don't know. Like, yeah, they died, but did they? Like, could they?
yeah,
What I mean, is this some sort of like endless cycle that happens with them? And there's like a rebirth, or because you get that a lot in kind of mythology.
yeah.
Um, Stuff they die, but they don't, and it's just kind of an endless struggle. So I think it's cool that they want to continue to explore that, and just kind of the mythology of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and the one thing for some reason it really stuck out to me that the sister was completely crumbled out of that picture. And we know that she has a life connection with Ahsoka. And to me, like, for some reason, there's something that keeps catching me there. I don't know why. It's probably nothing, but it's there. And we know Ahsoka and Sabine are planet right now.
mhm.
Is she going? There's just so much, and I want to get into this. And obviously we know that at the end of the Rise of Skywalker, when Rey hears all the voices, every voice that we could assume was dead. You know, and except for the only one that we couldn't confirm was Ahsoka.
Mhm.
So does she sacrifice herself and become one of the new gods? Is something there's that weird? I don't know. That just keeps running through my head, and I could be just my brain going on a weird, goose hunt. But it definitely is something that's out there to me that that just keep popping up. So I don't know. You might think, tell me if I'm crazy, but there's something with that and why that piece was missing from there. So I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that with the sister?
Yeah, I don't think it was an accident or done unintentionally. I do think there's some symbolism there. Um, I do think it is something we're going to continue to have theories about. But I would be very surprised if it's not delved into, and if that tie to the sister or to the Mortis in general isn't somehow involved in how they get back or whatever their journey is. Um, it also sounds like, I mean, I'm interested to know what Balin knows about it and
Yeah,
why that brought him there, or what his journey is. Is he somehow connected to the father or to the son? Like, is he going to be the embodiment of the son somehow, and Ahsoka's the daughter,
yeah.
or could it be his apprentice? Like,
It-
there's a ton
yes.
of potential to
Filoni left the book so
delve
open
in.
on that one.
What?
I said,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just
there's just not enough material, or we just don't know enough to even make any sort of informed guess. So, I mean, all you can do is spitball fan theories and wouldn't this be cools? Um, and maybe, I mean, somewhat, you throw enough darts at a board, you're gonna get close at least once. So I'm sure there's a theory out there that will be close to what we see, but
yeah,
I'm just as excited to see where they go with it.
yeah.
And I think it is going to be a big part of the next season.
And there's so many out there. Justin's been popping up with some good ones too. The Abeloth canon thing. And it just there's so much out there, Justin. And I love when you jump on these chats because you throw some good stuff out there. It's just so hard to tell anymore. Like it's just, I mean, Dave Filoni does such a great job, not only telling a story but leaving us hanging. Like he is like the master of leaving us hanging, and I love it. Because it gives us thinking. What's going on and everything. So before we get into our theories and everything, there's one part obviously we haven't talked about yet, which was probably the most heart wrenching, just amazing part. And obviously, that was the return of Anakin Skywalker. Um, they did this was done so well. At first, I thought it was Palpatine messing with Ahsoka because we saw that in Rebels in the World Between Worlds, and you knew that he could kind of control things and manipulate and all that. Um, but this gets so much deeper, so much more. Where Anakin finally gets to finish Ahsoka's training and just the fight, and then seeing the Clone Wars in live action, it was so I had so many chills, especially in the part. And I meant to put this picture in here, and I completely forgot when they're in the battle, and it's all dusty, and you see Anakin walk away, then he flashes to Vader, flashes back, just like in Obi-Wan, like when he talked, with his voice. And I mean, how awesome was this? How excited? Do you have the same chills? Like I was just going nuts when this happened. So
Yeah, it's one of those things too. You kind of knew the World Between Worlds was going to show up, or something outside of reality was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was a little apprehensive about that because I knew for a lot of Star Wars fans, that's going to be their first time experiencing some of that stuff. There's a lot of people that never watched Rebels. So it could be confusing, or it could be same with Mortis in the sense of like it's just these big ideas that exceed what some people know as Star Wars. But I thought it was a really, really cool way to bring Anakin back. It was very powerful. I think I love the character development. I
Yeah.
love the kind of understanding of motivations, what makes the characters tick, what makes them who they are. So this kind of like journey through her psyche, and him being there for the ride and influencing it was just really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it brings back it did capture a lot of their relationship from Clone Wars. It was great to see, and I thought that episode, I th- it's probably one of my favorites of the series. Just it did some really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, and it was just I like how, and people who listen to me talk about the Book of Boba Fett knows how much I hate flashbacks. And
I
that
thought
made
the
me hate it.
flashbacks were the best part of Book of Boba Fett.
That made me, that was the whole series. But what I liked about how they did these flashbacks was they weren't really flashbacks. There was something that was flashback, but happening differently as a training piece. So it wasn't what really happened in a way, and it was just, you know, awesome. And then when you got to the point where, Ahsoka and Anakin were fighting, and she was like, I choose to live, and just, and the whole, it was just amazing. I mean, we've seen some great lightsaber fights, I mean, Ahsoka Maul, Anakin, Darth Vader, or I'm sorry, Obi-Wan, Darth Vader. And this one was different, even though it was like a short lived fight. It probably had the most meaning because it was one of the ones that literally changed Ahsoka's. If she wasn't considering herself a Jedi, now she's considering herself a Jedi again. Is the way I kind of feel that we'll hear that I'm no Jedi anymore. Um, and I think this is really, and Justin kind of mentioned something about Rey earlier. We know Rey is going to raise a new Jedi Order. We know that that's been set out there, unless when we know Disney can pull the plug real fast on things. But we already know that we have
There's
Ezra
a
out
good
there.
chance we're gonna get this movie.
We got Ezra out there. We now have Sabine out there. We have Ahsoka and Broom Boy still out there somewhere. There's so much
More Broom Boy.
There's so much stuff that now that can get pulled into that. And I really feel that it's going to kill everybody, but I really think Ahsoka is going to end up sacrificing herself to help build this new Jedi Order. I think because you are starting to see her more open of what the bigger picture is now. And that's kind of like my theory on this. But when we get more into the deep into what we think is going to happen next with the Mandoverse and everything, I mean, what are your thoughts on that with Ahsoka, with her changing, from the brown robe back to the white, Ahsoka the pure, there's a lot of meaning in there, that's what I really like about it. And Justin, I cannot remember, but I think you're right here. Brandon, I'm going to pull up. When she was younger, didn't she have a green and blue sabers? I can't remember now. I might have to do some Googling, Justin. You stumped me there. That usually doesn't happen, especially when it comes to the animated stuff.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I thought she had two different color sabers at some point. Like when you say that, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think you're right, Justin. We'll have to research that, and I'll hit you up on there. But Justin's theories with Ahsoka here, I like this one too. Ahsoka gets captured at the end of the Mandoverse movie, brought the Palpatine. Her blood is used to create Snoke. I mean, we already know we've got broken Snokes already all over the place, and we know Moff Gideon now. That's all he was waiting. Somebody's blood's going to end up being the donor of building the Force again. We just don't know who's yet. And now Ezra's out there, and Sabine. Who knows what's going to happen with this? But with Ahsoka and her path, I mean, do you think that we're going to see her make it past the Mandoverse, or is the Ride of Skywalker right? Every Jedi that talked to her is past.
Yeah, it's one of those things. kind of the issue we had with Clone Wars was you're being introduced to all these Jedi and you know what their fate is. And I mean, that was one thing I always struggled with Ahsoka. Like, people love this character. I love this character. This character has to die, right? And they found that there are ways to do it. That makes sense. So I don't know. And it is frustrating that we're kind of at that point again where like the movie that we're getting with Rey is like the movie I wanted with Luke, or what's
Yes.
hinted at, you know. So I just, are we going to do the same sort of thing where, yeah, you know what, these Jedi were around but they just weren't involved again,
Yeah.
they were off doing their own thing or whatnot. I hate that we're even asking that question again, or have to ask that question again.
Well, and the biggest thing with, I mean, we know the Ghost was involved with that final battle on Exegol. We know the Ghost was there. Was Ezra flying it? Was Ezra with him? Like, yeah, it's just, I hate that we know how it ends. That's the biggest thing with me, right? You know, and obviously, you know, with us, you know, with me growing up with, you know, the huge gap in Star Wars that I had my whole entire life. I love that we're getting all this fill-in stuff, but now that I know the end of it, it's hard to kind of say, okay, I mean, I really another Rogue One where we lose some pretty good characters, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, I would do anything to have K2SO back, man. He's probably my favorite droid now. But it's just, you know, Ahsoka is going. There's some way that she spoke to Rey in the Force, and I mean, we really haven't seen much. But what I thought also was kind of interesting, though, too, which also could throw this whole theory out the window, was how Jason Sedula was able to get Hera to hear the lightsaber battle. That's a whole new story we'll have to talk about, because I don't
Yeah.
get how he kind of did he like throw some, you know, force power at her for a little bit, and it was just, that was kind of weird as well. But you know, unfortunately, I think this is going to be the end of Ahsoka. I really, it kills
I
me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I would be surprised also if we see her past whatever this final Mandoverse movie is. Um I could see us getting some sort of like Obi-Wan finish to her. Uh but it's also, I mean, the thing with the Obi-Wan finish is he was passing the torch.
Yeah,
Is there a torch to pass at this point?
yeah. There's really not.
Unless it's Jason, but then once again, or Sabine. But then again, and then you're just like, but then why weren't they involved in the next stuff, or where does their story go from there? So
Yeah, you know, and
um,
maybe Sabine and Ahsoka never leave that planet for. Maybe that's where we're getting another story from. You know, and it's hard to tell because obviously they got to find a way back, and the space whales don't go back; they go there to die. So we know that they're not going to be able to hop on another space whale and head that
yeah,
direction. So it's one of those things that, you know, and Justin, I agree. I mean, as much as like Ahsoka's become one of my favorite characters, and I agree that she has, at some point it's time to go. But I also don't think Rey is going to shine like we think she's going to, because there's already been hints that she is not going to be the focus of this next movie. She's there to teach the Jedi, but it's not about her. So that was
we're getting a new
interesting.
generation. We're gonna have new
Yeah.
heroes, and
So
yeah, I hope Ray gets her due, but
mhm.
at the same point, I'm always interested in new stories and new characters. So
And I'll start some controversy here. Don't forget, we also know Finn is force sensitive now too.
yeah,
So I mean, we've got that. I know there's going to be people that are going to throw a fit about that, but you know, it's a big world, and hopefully, with these new movies, we kind of get out of the world that we're in. You know, as much as I hate to say that, that's the world we grew up with, but it's time for some new stories. It's time to move on. You know, and I would do it Ezra, you know, Sabine kind of moving out, or you know, what are we getting? And we still got, remember, Thrawn's still in this damn picture. We still got, you know, we still got this empire that's building up on this planet, and we know they get destroyed, but there's still some other stuff going on behind the scenes. um
yeah. There's
Definitely.
just space to explore. There's there's just so it's, I mean, it's a huge place. Like, it could be one of those things like they defeat Thrawn, and Thrawn's dying wish was like, I did all of this for my people. Like, will you save them? And that explains where Ezra and Sabine go.
Yeah.
There's a ton of potential, and I do, yeah, it is one of those things, like, it's a universe. It's huge. There are places that people can go. There are parts of this universe that have never heard of the Empire.
Yeah.
So there's a whole new universe. Like,
Well, I mean, look at the Mando. Look at, like, they didn't really know what a Jedi was.
yeah,
So we definitely got a lot of stories coming our way. I'm anxious to see. And Justin here, what do you got here now, Justin? They really did disservice him by not making him start his path toward become a Jedi in the first or
I
second
think you're
movie,
talking
and
about
then the
Finn.
sequel. Finn, yeah, I agree. I mean,
The bait
there's
and switch, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff with. I mean, we could do an entire series on issues with the sequel trilogy, but
yeah. I'm going to kind of block that out. Maybe
yeah, let's not take this down that path. We don't need to be too negative.
if we have like more than a year between Star Wars content, then we'll bring it up.
Yeah,
But hopefully we'll have some new stuff to talk about here soon. But so the final thing we'll talk about, Brandon, I'll let you go here, is what do you think we're going to see? Are we getting another season of Ahsoka, or are we going into the Mandoverse movies? And what do you think we're going to see the future hold here for us to wipe all this out?
I really hope we are getting another season of Ahsoka. Um, I feel like where they left it with the other planet, with Balin's skull, with all of that, I don't feel like that can be wrapped up and done justice as part of a movie where you're also Thrawn is invading your galaxy and you have to deal with that. Like,
Yeah.
those both seem like very big stories. And I'd love both of them to be given justice. Like, I think you could almost have an entire series of Ahsoka where it is really focused on that other universe and it's exploring Mortis and it's exploring her. Balin Scroll's the main kind of antagonist. Um, and like, I would love that story. And you kind of just have those, not flashbacks, but like flashes of let's see what's happening in the universe. Let's start setting up that story. Let's see that conflict beginning. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's too much going on. I want everything, and I don't think you can get it without another season.
Yeah, it's just I'm the same way. I would like to have one more season before we get into the Mandoverse movie. But there's so much stuff, like, with this whole, if everything's connecting, there's so much. And Justin will get back in here. Pedro, I heard that he isn't returning either, but again, that's all rumors. Hopefully we'll find out more in that. But I do know that most of this season it was most of the stunt people in the armor and hardly him at all.
Yeah, season 3 was the
Yeah.
same.
So, but with me is I need some answers on some things. First off, Cobb Vanth. He's been stuck in that back of the tank for a while. Let's pull him out. He's probably pretty wrinkled right now. And we'll have Travis back on the show as well. I'm sure he'll love to hear that I actually throw Cobb Vanth kind of a bone out there, because it's annoying, because, like, okay, this guy, they obviously showed him in that back of the tank for a reason. I was surprised we didn't see Boba Fett, in this season, because he was a big part of this whole connection thing. Even
Yeah,
like Bo-Katan, and like I thought we were going to see Bo-Katan and Sabine meet again. So hopefully we get that kind of stuff in the next season before we get in the movie. So kind of like, like the Avengers, we're getting our Avengers or whatever, where all these people are teaming up, and then it's like, hey, here we go. Because we know Fett doesn't want to be the Don anymore. He doesn't want to run things. He wants to go back to his Fett ways. We got that 80s montage ending of that awful series. But it's just that there's all that. And then, again, I've said this a million times tonight. It's like, since we already know how it ends, how do we tie that in to where it's not too obvious and we're like, oh yeah, well, we saw that coming 500 miles away. That's what my biggest worry is right now, because we're getting close to that crunch time of the timelines, because they're already starting to intersect now. Can they intersect good enough to where we can accept this is how this is going to end? And that's my big thing with that here. Is going, and I actually brought up Justin's message again there. But yeah, I hopefully we'll get more soon. Obviously, right now I don't know if anything that I've heard that they've already started on anything. I kind of I listen to the press releases and our insiders down at the good old Disney Star Wars land, and not much right now. Of course, obviously the strikes put a big hamper on everything, but we got a lot of good stuff coming, folks. We're going to get some more Star Wars content. We already know that's coming. Tales of Jedi's coming back, which I'm excited about. I can't wait to see that. The Acolyte, I have no clue what's going on with that.
We gotta get you reading, man.
Yeah, I gotta start getting some more content.
There's a lot of good stuff out there with the High Republic and the comics,
but yeah, we got a lot going for us in the Star Wars world, and that's one of the great things about it. And that's what we're going our next show. We're right now we're going to go every 2 weeks, because right now we don't have a lot of Star Wars content coming at us. So not next Monday, but the Monday after we'll do our next show. And that show we're actually going to talk about the collectible world. We're going to talk about where we think it's going and stuff like that. What's cool out there, so cool out there. What do they need to stop and everything there. I will say this now to prep us. They're bringing back the glass window fronts on the Black Series figures. They're getting rid of that box stuff. So you can actually see the figure that's in there and not open it up a year later and realize that somebody put an old Rey figure in there and it was supposed to be
you never even knew.
Yeah. So we got that coming on too. Also, I want to thank all the veterans out there. We had Veteran Day weekend. Thank you everybody for your service. The ones that have fallen, the ones that are still here. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be able to enjoy what we love to do, and that's talk Star Wars in here. And also, again, everybody knows how important mental health is to me. Don't be afraid to ask for help, people. 988, very simple. If you have no one to talk to, please call that number. They're there for you to help you out. We lose too many veterans and friends a day to suicide, and to me, it's something that we can prevent. So don't be afraid to ask somebody if they need help, and don't be afraid, to say, hey, let me take you somewhere to get you the help, because you never know, you can change a life or save a life. And with that, Brendan, it's so lovely to have you on here for our first X-Wingin It.
Thank you.
Definitely a great time. We had some computer glitches. Talk about last second save. But it's been a great show. Justin, it's been great having you on here. Oh yeah, I'll be getting more McRibs tomorrow, Justin. Don't worry about that. But again, Brendan, it was great having you on here. Brendan will be back again next week. We might have a couple more other people on here. Who knows what we'll have? That's why it's called X-Wingin It, because we're going to wing through this and just have a good time and talk Star Wars. Remember, it's always a safe zone for all of us. So again, thank you so much, Brendan. Also, again, make sure you guys check out our sponsors scrolling down there along the screen, TRG Toys and Collectible. They're the ones that make this show happen. So thank you, Dennis. And check them out at trgtoys.com. And with that, again, thank you, everybody. Be safe out there, and may the Force be with you.